Hi, I'm Leo. My project utilizes Twitter to analyze US politicians' reputation and US-China relations during COVID-19 with a novel sentiment classification technique. Recently, we can see a lot of news about US presidential polls. Opinion poll is a common way to measure public's opinion. It explicitly asks people's opinion on certain subjects. Nowadays, the widely use of social media like Twitter has huge volume of data. People can express their attitudes or sentiments towards any subjects every day. Is it possible to do an implicit poll with the data? Our motivation is simple. If majority of people express positive sentiment for a person, it means most people like them, therefore, they have good reputation. In this project, we propose a novel metric called Sentiment-Based Reputation Score, or SRS, as an indicator of an entity's reputation. The problem we want to solve in this project is to analyze people's sentiment in their tweets to quantitatively review their attitudes towards popular political entities amid COVID-19. There are two interesting topics that we will use for case study. How do Americans' attitudes towards China change during the COVID-19? And has Donald Trump's reputation on Twitter declined during the pandemic? I divide the problems into two subtasks. First, we train a Twitter sentiment classifier. It can classify the sentiment of a tweet as positive, negative, or neutral. Second, we collect some tweets containing keywords we're interested in. Classify the sentiment, then compute the SRS and analyze it. We use two datasets. In first task, we use sentiment analysis in Twitter from SemEvil 2017 tasks. In the second task, we collect our own data, tweets in the last 7 months for certain entities. We did some data cleaning, basically removing all characters that don't affect their sentiment. Then we did some data preprocessing. As will be discussed later, our network requires certain data format. It is a bit complicated, but you can look at the example of how a string is tokenized and converted to a list of IDs. Now let's take a closer look at how we implement the tasks. In task 1, we want to train a classifier. It is a natural language processing problem, and we use a state-of-the-art deep learning model, BERT, to do the classification. We add a fully connected layer after the pre-trained BERT model to train a classifier for Twitter sentiment. For more details and parameters of the model, you can look at the code or the report. As you can imagine, to make sure the pipeline works, we need the classifier to perform well. We compare our model's performance with other people's work. The benchmark shows BERT achieves the best results. This gives us confidence that our pipeline will work well. In the second task, we need to compute and analyze SRS for some tweets. This is how we compute SRS. We let the score of positive sentiment to be 1, negative to be -1. Essentially, we are computing the weighted average to get a final score. Then we filter the noise and visualize the results. Now let's look at some interesting results. The figure shows the trend of Americans' attitudes towards China during COVID-19. Throughout the past 7 months, the attitudes were all negative and less than 0. We can observe that from the mid-January, the SRS started to drop sharply and reached the lowest point in mid-March at -0.84. Let's have a closer look. In the beginning of COVID-19, the virus is mainly spreading in China. Some people were criticizing the temporary hospitals and quarantine centers as concentration camp, and some were doubting the authenticity of the number of cases reported by the Chinese government. It caused the China SRS to drop in the beginning. In March, the US President Donald Trump started to blame China for coronavirus pandemic and calling coronavirus Chinese virus. This brought the China's SRS to the lowest points as people started to follow the president to blame China. After that, the reputation scores gradually increased but still kept at a relatively low level. We also analyzed the SRS trend of US President Donald Trump. For a short period of time between January and February, his reputation wasn't too bad. However, from the end of February, his reputation immediately plunged. One of the iconic events was when Trump called the pandemic Chinese virus, which brought the reputation of both China and Trump himself to its lowest position. Trump has been widely criticized by his racism. There are other events later sparking people's critique, like Trump suggesting injecting disinfectant as treatment. His reputation score stayed low since then. We also produced a violin plot, which shows the daily SRS distribution of Donald Trump. It shows that the Donald Trump's reputation keeps decreasing from February to May. The little circle represents the median value of SRS, and they're dropping during this time. The distribution in May reveals a significant portion of scores are as low as minus 0.6, the worst of the past 7 months. The conclusion can also be confirmed by statistical tests. By using Mann-Whitney U-test, we conclude that Trump's reputation did drop after the start of the pandemic. It's more interesting to compare Trump and Biden. Joe Biden's SRS score has been higher than Donald Trump for most of the time, with an average of minus 0.27 versus minus 0.44. People seem to hold a more positive attitude to Biden than to Trump. The conclusion here is also very much in line with the presidential polls, showing Biden is leading. Summary: we propose a novel sentiment-based reputation score as an implicit poll. The value of SRS can indicate the reputation of a given entity. Our contributions include proposing SRS and how to compute it using a deep learning model, and utilizing SRS to analyze the US politicians' reputation and Americans' attitudes to China amid COVID-19. Our results are in accordance with the media reports and polls. That is, more Americans do have worse impression of China during COVID-19, and the public is more in favor of Biden compared with Trump. The SRS can be used to evaluate reputations or attitudes of any topics you are interested in, as long as there are a good number of people discussing them. It can also be extended to other social platforms like Reddit. The more data we have, the more accurate results we can get. That's the end of the video. Thank you.